When M15 Theta, a creature launched from Earth to the Deathworld Alliance, reached the first space checkpoint, a scream echoed for an entire week. And that was just the beginning. The distant hum of the approaching diplomatic vessel reverberated through the vast docking bays of Vortex Citadel. Ambassador Tara Beckett stood at the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebula clouds beyond the reinforced glass panels. The year was 2375, and humanity had just joined the Deathworld Alliance, a coalition of 32 species that had evolved on the most inhospitable planets in the known universe. Ambassador, the containment unit is secure for transfer. Lieutenant Markov's voice crackled through her earpiece. M15 Theta shows stable life signs. Tara exhaled slowly, her breath fogging the glass. Thank you, Lieutenant. Prepare the ceremonial escort. Remember, this is more than a diplomatic gesture. It's Earth's testament to our commitment to peace. As she turned away from the viewport, Tara caught her reflection in the polished surface of a nearby console. Her formal diplomatic attire, midnight blue with silver embroidery representing Earth's constellations, contrasted sharply with the utilitarian design of the space station. At 35, she still carried herself with the disciplined posture of her former naval command days, though the shadows under her eyes betrayed the pressure of her current mission. The containment unit holding Earth's peace offering was being transported under maximum security protocols. M15 Theta, nicknamed Roria by the scientists who had discovered it, was a space hyena hybrid of plasma energy and flesh from the Vor-6 system. Its ability to emit frequency sounds that induced trance-like states had fascinated Earth's xenobiologists, who believed its unique properties would serve as both a scientific marvel and a gesture of goodwill. Let's just hope they see it as the gift it is, Tara muttered to herself as she made her way to the reception hall. The Grand Hall of Vortex Citadel was an architectural marvel, a massive dome with transparent sections that revealed the surrounding space anomalies. The station itself was positioned at the intersection of several wormholes, making it the perfect neutral ground for the Alliance's political activities. Representatives from all 32 Deathworld species had gathered for the ceremonial presentation of Earth's gift. High Marshal Ulix Pharaoh of the KX Dominion, the current head of the Alliance Executive Board, towered over the assembly. His exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights as he approached Tara. Ambassador Beckett, he intoned, mandibles clicking with each syllable. The Alliance welcomes this gesture from Earth, though I must express concern about bringing a living specimen into our station. Tara smiled diplomatically. High Marshal, I assure you that M15 Theta has been thoroughly studied and poses no threat. In fact, its biological properties offer revolutionary possibilities for self-healing materials, something I believe would be of particular interest to species that have evolved in harsh environments. The Marshal's compound eyes reflected no emotion. We shall see. The assembly quieted as the containment unit was wheeled into the center of the hall. It was a sleek, cylindrical chamber with biometric controls and reinforced transparent sections that allowed glimpses of the creature inside. Roria appeared to be sleeping, a mass of shimmering, semi-translucent flesh with plasma-like tendrils that pulsed with a soft blue glow. Tara stepped forward, placing her hand on the biometric scanner. Distinguished representatives of the Deathworld Alliance, on behalf of Earth and humanity, I present to you M15 Theta, a living symbol of our commitment to peace and scientific collaboration. The containment unit's seal hissed as it began to open. What happened next would be recorded in Alliance archives as the first scream. As the lid parted, Roria's eyes snapped open, orbs of swirling plasma that seemed to focus immediately on the assembled crowd. For a fraction of a second, there was perfect silence. Then came the sound. It wasn't merely loud. It was all-consuming. A piercing, multitonal shriek that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and strike directly at the brainstem. The sound vibrated at frequencies that made the very air appear to ripple, causing the metal fixtures in the room to resonate sympathetically. Tara dropped to her knees, hands clasped over her ears, though it did nothing to block the assault. Around her, representatives from a dozen worlds writhed in similar distress. Some of the more sensitive species had already collapsed, their nervous systems overwhelmed by the sonic assault. Through watering eyes, Tara saw Roria rise from its containment, its form seeming to expand as the plasma tendrils whipped around it in agitation. The scream modulated, changing pitch and intensity in patterns that made the floor beneath them vibrate in distinct patterns. "Shut it down!" Marshal Pharaoh roared over the cacophony, his exoskeleton actually cracking under the sonic pressure. "Containment breach! Security protocols now!" Emergency force fields snapped into place around Roria, but the sound penetrated them effortlessly. Station alarms added to the chaos, their warnings barely audible beneath Roria's continuous scream. When security personnel managed to reactivate the containment unit's sedation systems, Roria finally fell silent. The sudden absence of sound was almost as shocking as its onset. In the aftermath, dozens of delegates lay unconscious, and the Grand Hall showed visible damage, twisted metal fixtures, cracked display panels, and a strange rippling effect on previously smooth surfaces. Tara found herself surrounded by armed guards, their weapons trained on her. "Ambassador Beckett!" Marshal Pharaoh's voice was cold with fury, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "You will explain this act of aggression immediately, or I will consider it a declaration of war." "I don't understand," Tara gasped, still struggling to regain her equilibrium. "This wasn't supposed to happen. Roria was docile during all our tests." "Docile?" A new voice joined the conversation. "That creature just emitted a harmonic resonance pattern, capable of disrupting neural pathways across 17 different species, simultaneously." A tall, slender being with translucent skin approached. "I am Professor Rick Talon, head of multiversal acoustics, and what you've brought to our station, Ambassador, is not a gift. It's a weapon." Tara was immediately placed under station arrest, confined to diplomatic quarters that suddenly felt more like a prison cell. She paced the limited space, mind racing as she tried to understand what had gone wrong. "The reports never mentioned anything like this," she muttered, reviewing the data files on her personal terminal. All tests showed Roria's vocalizations were within safe parameters. A notification chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. To her surprise, it was Professor Talon requesting entry. When she granted it, the Morksley scientist glided into her quarters with eerie grace. "Ambassador, I've come to discuss your gift," he said, his voice a whisper that somehow filled the room. "I've been analyzing the acoustic data from the incident, and I've found something rather peculiar." Tara gestured to a seat. "Please, Professor. Anything that might help explain the situation would be welcome." Talon's translucent fingers manipulated a holographic display that materialized between them. The sound Roria produced wasn't random. "Look at these pattern fragments. They're structured, almost like a language, but encoded at frequencies that interact directly with neural tissue." "Are you saying Roria was trying to communicate?" "Perhaps. Or perhaps it was responding to something." Talon's large, pupil-less eyes fixed on her. "The question is, did you know what this creature was capable of?" "No," Tara said firmly. "Earth wouldn't deliberately send a biological weapon to a diplomatic summit. That would be insane. Yet, here we are." Talon manipulated the display again. "I've petitioned the Council for permission to study the creature in my laboratory. If I can understand the nature of these acoustic patterns, perhaps I can develop a dampening field to neutralize them." "And what happens to Roria then?" "That will be for the Council to decide. But given what we've witnessed, termination seems the most likely outcome." Tara felt a chill run through her. Whatever Roria was, it was a living being, not merely an experiment gone wrong. There must be another solution. If we could understand why it reacted that way. A harsh alarm interrupted her, followed by an announcement that echoed throughout the station. Security alert. Containment breach in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Talon's expression shifted to one of alarm. That's the high-security lab where they took your gift. Before either could respond further, the lights flickered, and then it came again, the scream. Even at this distance, it penetrated the walls, making Tara's vision blur and her stomach lurch. The sound was different this time, more focused, more deliberate, almost like it was searching for something. "It's worse than before," Talon gasped, his translucent skin rippling in response to the sound waves. "The harmonics are evolving." Through the viewport in her quarters, Tara could see portions of the station's interior structure beginning to vibrate visibly. In the corridor outside, she heard panicked shouts and the sound of running feet. "Professor, we need to get to Roria," she said, fighting through the disorientation caused by the ongoing acoustic assault. "Whatever is happening, I'm responsible for bringing it here. I need to help fix this." Talon hesitated, then nodded. "I know a way through the maintenance corridors, but we'll need authorization to enter the containment area." "Leave that to me," Tara said, grabbing her diplomatic credentials. "One advantage of being a suspected terrorist, no one's bothered to revoke my access yet." As they navigated the increasingly chaotic corridors of Vortex Citadel, they encountered a security checkpoint, manned by a Megorn officer, a heavily armored humanoid, with ridged skin and eyes that glowed with internal light. "Halt!" the officer commanded, weapon raised. "This sector is under lockdown." "Major Vesa Kroll." Talon identified him. "We need to reach the containment lab. The ambassador may have information that could help control the situation." "The human's gift is tearing the station apart," Kroll growled. "And you want to take her closer to it?" "I understand your skepticism, Major," Tara said, stepping forward despite the weapon pointed at her chest. "But that creature is my responsibility. I brought it here. I need to help contain it." "You'll be shot on sight by station security," Kroll warned. "Then come with us," Tara suggested. "Keep me under arrest if you must, but let me try to help." A particularly violent wave of sound rippled through the corridor, causing the lights to flicker and a nearby console to spark and smoke. Kroll's weapon trembled in his hands, the internal mechanisms disturbed by the resonance. "Fine," he finally grunted. "But any suspicious move, and I won't hesitate to neutralize you." The trio made their way deeper into the station, moving against the flow of evacuating personnel. The effects of Roria's continuous screaming became more pronounced the closer they got to the containment lab. Metal panels warped, holographic displays distorted, and the very air seemed to shimmer with visible sound waves. They found the lab in chaos. The containment field around Roria had partially collapsed, allowing the creature more freedom of movement. It hovered near the ceiling, its plasma tendrils extending outward like searching fingers, its form pulsating in rhythm with its relentless screaming. The few technicians still present were desperately trying to reinforce the containment field, but their equipment was malfunctioning under the sonic assault. "The harmonic resonance is affecting all electronic systems," Talon observed, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. "It's as if the sound is designed to disrupt specific frequencies used in our technology." "Can you counter it?" Tara asked. "Not without access to my acoustic laboratory." Talon's gaze remained fixed on Roria. "But look at the pattern of movement. It's not random. The creature is searching for something." Tara studied Roria more carefully. Despite the chaos it was causing, there was something almost desperate in its movements. "It's afraid," she realized aloud. "It's lashing out because it's terrified." "That thing isn't capable of fear," Kroll scoffed. "It's a biological weapon, nothing more." All creatures feel fear. Major, Tara countered. And fear makes us do terrible things. She took a step closer to the containment field, ignoring Kroll's warning shout. Roria, she called, knowing the creature couldn't possibly hear her over its own screaming, but trying nonetheless. We're not going to hurt you. To everyone's surprise, Roria's screaming faltered for a brief moment. Its plasma-like eyes seemed to focus on Tara. It recognized you, Tellin whispered, astonished. Or it recognized human pheromones, Kroll said skeptically. But he lowered his weapon slightly. Tara took another cautious step forward. That's it, Roria. You remember me, don't you? From the Earth facility? The screaming diminished further, though it didn't stop entirely. The creature descended slightly, its tendrils undulating in a less frantic pattern. Ambassador, Tellin's voice was urgent. If you can maintain its attention, I might be able to access the lab systems and analyze its acoustic patterns more thoroughly. Tara nodded without taking her eyes off Roria. Do it, Professor. For the next several minutes, Tara continued to speak soothingly to Roria, while Tellin worked feverishly at a partially functioning console. Kroll maintained his guard position, though his weapon remained lowered. I've got something, Tellin finally announced. The acoustic patterns contain embedded data, complex biological information encoded in the sound waves themselves. What kind of information? Kroll demanded. It's like a genetic blueprint, Tellin said, his voice filled with wonder. But modified with nano-restructuring protocols. This creature has been engineered, down to the cellular level. That's impossible, Tara protested. Earth wouldn't... The evidence is right here, Tellin interrupted, displaying a holographic representation of the sound waves with embedded coding highlighted. Your scientists implanted nanotechnology, designed to enhance its survival capabilities in Deathworld conditions. But something went wrong. A new alarm blared through the lab, cutting through even Roria's diminished screaming. Station-wide alert, an automated voice announced. Executive Council has authorized Protocol Omega. Biological restructuring curriculum activated. Countdown initiated. What's Protocol Omega? Tara asked, though she dreaded the answer. They're going to flood this entire sector with a nano-frequency pulse designed to break down biological matter. Kroll explained grimly. They're going to disintegrate your gift molecule by molecule. But that would kill Roria. That's the point. Ambassador, Kroll said. Your gift is considered too dangerous to contain. Tara looked back at Roria, whose screaming had intensified again, perhaps in response to the new alarm. We can't let that happen. It's not just a weapon. It's a living being. And from what Professor Tellin has discovered, it might be a victim as much as anything else. The pulse will deploy in 15 minutes, Kroll informed them. And there's no stopping it once initiated. Then we need to neutralize Roria's screaming before then, Tara decided. Professor, is there any way to counteract the nanotechnology that's causing this reaction? Talon's fingers danced across the console. Possibly. The nano-restructuring seems to be triggered by stress. It's a survival mechanism. If we could somehow calm the creature, disrupt the feedback loop between its emotional state and the nano-response. I might have something, Kroll said unexpectedly. He reached into a compartment on his armor and withdrew a small device. A bioharmonic suppressor, Megorn military technology, designed to neutralize sonic weapons. Will it work on Roria? Tara asked. It's designed to interrupt precisely the kind of frequency patterns your gift is emitting, Kroll explained. But it needs to be placed directly on the creature, which means someone has to get past that containment field, Tellin observed. All three looked at the partially collapsed field, where Roria continued to hover, screaming and thrashing its tendrils. I'll do it, Tara volunteered. It responded to me before. Ambassador, that's suicide, Kroll objected. Even if the creature doesn't attack you directly, the sound at that proximity could cause permanent neural damage. Do you have a better suggestion, Major? Tara challenged. Because in about 13 minutes, Roria will be reduced to its component molecules, and possibly take half the station with it. Kroll hesitated, then reluctantly handed her the suppressor device. Attach it to any part of the creature's central mass. It will self-activate on contact. Talon approached, holding something that looked like a thin metallic collar. Take this as well. It's a rudimentary acoustic dampening field. It won't completely protect you, but it might buy you enough time. Tara accepted both devices, securing the collar around her neck and holding the suppressor tightly in her hand. If this doesn't work, tell Earth I was trying to make things right. We'll tell them yourself, Ambassador, Talon said solemnly. Approaching the containment field was like walking into a wall of physical pain, even with the dampening collar. Roria's screams hammered at Tara's consciousness, making each step forward a monumental effort. The air itself seemed to resist her progress, rippling and distorting around her body. "Roria!" she called out, though she could barely hear her own voice. "I'm here to help you." The creature's plasma eyes fixed on her, and for a moment, its screaming intensified, driving Tara to her knees. Her vision blurred, and she felt warm liquid running from her ears. Still, she forced herself forward, crawling the last few meters to where Roria hovered. Reaching up with trembling hands, Tara held out the suppressor device. "Please," she gasped. "Take this." To her astonishment, one of Roria's tendrils extended toward her, curling around her wrist with surprising gentleness. The tendril felt both solid and insubstantial, like touching electrified water. Tara pressed the suppressor against it, and the device immediately adhered to the plasma flesh. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Roria's screaming changed, becoming higher, more frantic, before suddenly cutting off entirely. The silence was so abrupt that Tara nearly lost consciousness from the shock of it. The creature's form pulsed rapidly, its tendrils whipping about in apparent distress. Then, gradually, it began to shrink, condensing back into a more compact form. The plasma glow dimmed to a soft, steady luminescence. And then, to Tara's utter amazement, Roria descended until it was hovering just above the floor in front of her. Its tendril, still wrapped around her wrist, tugged gently, pulling her closer. "Ambassador!" Kroll called out warningly. "It's okay," Tara responded, her voice hoarse. I think it's trying to communicate." As if in confirmation, Roria emitted a soft, almost musical trill, nothing like the devastating scream from before. The sound carried a strange sense of gratitude. "Professor," Tara called back to Talon, not taking her eyes off Roria. "Are you getting this?" "Fascinating." Talon's voice was filled with wonder. The suppressor isn't just blocking the harmful frequencies. It's allowing the creature to modulate its vocalizations voluntarily. It's as if whatever Talon was about to say was interrupted by a violent shudder that ran through the entire station. Panels tore from walls, equipment crashed to the floor, and the lights flickered wildly. "What's happening?" Tara demanded, instinctively moving to shield Roria with her body. "The station's structural integrity is compromised," Kroll reported grimly, checking a display on his armor. "The damage from the creature's screaming was more extensive than we realized, and the Protocol Omega countdown is still active. 9 minutes remaining." Another violent tremor shook the lab, more severe than the first. A section of ceiling collapsed, narrowly missing Talon, who dove out of the way with surprising agility. "We need to evacuate," Kroll insisted. "This entire sector could decompress at any moment." "What about Roria?" Tara demanded, her arm still linked with the creature's tendril. "Bring it if you must," Kroll conceded. "But we need to move now." They made their hurried way through increasingly unstable corridors, dodging falling debris and sparking electrical systems. Roria stayed close to Tara, its form occasionally brushing against her as if seeking reassurance. The suppressor continued to function, keeping the creature's vocalizations at a safe, almost melodic level. "Where are we going?" Terra asked as Kroll led them down an unfamiliar passage. "Central Control," he replied. "It's the only place where Protocol Omega might be countermanded." "By the Executive Council," Tellan added, "who, you might recall, Ambassador, are not particularly sympathetic to your position at the moment." "Then we'll have to change their minds," Terra said determinedly. They reached a massive set of doors, marked with the Alliance insignia. Kroll placed his hand on a scanner, and after a tense moment, the doors parted to reveal the station's central control hub, a vast chamber filled with monitoring stations and dominated by a circular table where the Executive Council members were gathered in obvious distress. Marshal Farrow's mandibles clicked rapidly when he spotted them. "Major Kroll, explain this breach of protocol immediately. And why is that creature not contained?" "Sir, the Ambassador has successfully neutralized the immediate threat," Kroll reported, standing at military attention despite the chaos around them. "The creature is no longer emitting harmful frequencies." "That is irrelevant," Farrow dismissed. "Protocol Omega has been authorized. The specimen will be neutralized." "Marshal, please." Terra stepped forward, Roria still close beside her. "There's been a misunderstanding. Roria isn't a weapon. It's a victim of misguided experimentation." "Professor Tellan," a Vespet Council member spoke up, her insectoid features impossible to read. "You were tasked with analyzing this creature. What is your assessment?" Tellan moved to a central console, uploading the data he had collected. "Distinguished Council members, my analysis indicates that M15 Theta, Roria, is a native species from the Vor-6 system that has been extensively modified with nano-restructuring technology. The harmful sonic emissions were an unintended consequence of these modifications, triggered by stress and fear." "A convenient explanation," another council member scoffed. "One supported by empirical evidence," Tellan countered, displaying the acoustic patterns and embedded nanocoding. "Furthermore, now that the creature's emissions have been suppressed, I believe it represents an unprecedented opportunity for scientific advancement." "Explain," Marshal Farrow demanded. "The nanotechnology integrated into Roria's cellular structure is far more sophisticated than anything currently employed by the Alliance," Tellan elaborated. "If properly studied, it could lead to breakthroughs in self-healing materials for weapons, spacecraft, even biological applications." A low murmur spread through the council members. Terra recognized the shift in the atmosphere, from fear and anger to cautious interest. "And you believe this technology was intentionally incorporated by Earth scientists?" the Vespet Council member inquired. "I cannot speak to intent," Tellan replied diplomatically. "But the sophistication suggests deliberate engineering. Yes." All eyes turned to Terra, who felt Roria press closer to her side. "Ambassador Beckett," Marshal Farrow addressed her formally. "Did Earth deliberately send us a nano-enhanced organism without full disclosure of its capabilities?" Terra chose her words carefully. "Marshal, members of the Council, I was informed that Roria was a rare specimen with unique biological properties that might be of scientific interest to the Alliance. I was not briefed on any nano-engineering aspects. If such modifications were made, they were not included in the information provided to me." "You expect us to believe Earth's diplomatic corps was kept ignorant of such crucial details?" a Morksley council member challenged. "I expect you to recognize that mistakes can be made without malicious intent," Terra replied evenly. "And I urge you to consider the opportunity before you now. Rather than destroying Roria, we could collaborate on understanding the technology it embodies, for mutual benefit." A violent tremor interrupted the discussion, more severe than any previous. Warning alerts flashed across multiple displays. "Station structural integrity at 37% and declining," an automated voice announced. "Protocol Omega deployment in 4 minutes, 20 seconds. "We don't have time for debate," Kroll interjected urgently. The station is compromised, and Protocol Omega may cause further damage if deployed in these conditions. Marshal Pharaoh's compound eyes fixed on Terra and Roria for a long moment. Then he turned to the Council. I move to suspend Protocol Omega and evacuate the affected sectors. Seconded, the Vespet member added quickly. Consensus achieved, Pharaoh declared, mandibles clicking rapidly as he input commands into the central console. Protocol Omega aborted. Begin station-wide evacuation procedures. Amid the chaos of the evacuation order, Terra felt a moment of relief. Roria was safe, at least temporarily. But as another violent tremor shook the control hub, she realized they weren't out of danger yet. Ambassador, Kroll approached her, his armor now showing visible damage from falling debris. We need to get you and the creature to an evacuation vessel. What about the rest of the station? Terra asked, concerned for the thousands of beings that called Vortex Citadel home. The damage is primarily confined to the sectors exposed to the creature's sonic emissions, Kroll explained. The station's modular design will allow those sections to be sealed off. Most residents will shelter in place until repairs can be initiated. Talon joined them, clutching a data storage device. I've preserved all my findings on Roria's unique properties. This knowledge must not be lost. As they made their way toward the evacuation docks, they encountered an unexpected obstacle, a group of robed figures blocking their path. They were a mixed group, representing several different Alliance species, but all wore the same ecstatic expression. The Sang Maiden comes, one of them proclaimed, pointing at Roria, just as the ancient texts foretold. The cult of Roria, Talon whispered to Terra. They formed quickly. Some Alliance members believe your creature is a divine being whose screams liberate souls. That's ridiculous, Terra whispered back. Is it? Talon's pupilless eyes studied her. A being whose voice can reshape matter itself. Many religions have been founded on less. We must escort the Sang Maiden to the sacred chambers, the cult leader insisted, taking a step toward them. Kroll moved protectively in front of Terra and Roria. Stand aside. Official evacuation in progress. You cannot contain divinity, soldier, the cult leader said with fervent conviction. Before the situation could escalate further, another tremor rocked the corridor, more violent than any before. The ceiling above the cult members groaned ominously. Look out! Terra shouted, but it was too late. With a deafening crack, a section of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the corridor with debris and trapping the cult members on the other side. We need to find another route, Kroll decided, consulting a schematic on his armor display. This way. They navigated through increasingly unstable sections of the station, the damage growing more severe the closer they got to the areas where Roria's screaming had been most intense. Walls showed rippling deformations, as if the metal itself had briefly liquefied before resolidifying in new, strange configurations. The molecular bonds were temporarily disrupted by the harmonic resonance. Talon observed with scientific detachment, even as he stepped carefully around a section of floor that had twisted into an impossible Mobius configuration. They were nearing the evacuation docks when the worst tremor yet struck the station. The corridor ahead of them simply vanished, torn away into the vacuum of space, with only an emergency force field preventing them from being sucked out as well. The field won't hold for long, Kroll warned, looking for alternatives on his schematic. We need to backtrack and find another route. As they turned, a secondary explosion rocked the section behind them, sending a wave of debris hurtling toward them. Terra saw Kroll push her aside, taking the brunt of the impact himself. The Magorn soldier was thrown against a wall with bone-crushing force, his armor cracking under the impact. Major! Terra rushed to his side, but it was immediately clear that his injuries were severe. Dark blood seeped from multiple wounds, and his glowing eyes had dimmed significantly. Get to the evacuation pods, Kroll gasped, each word clearly causing him pain. Talon, knows the way. We're not leaving you, Tara insisted. You must. Kroll's voice strengthened momentarily. The suppressor won't last forever. If the creature starts screaming again... To everyone's surprise, Roria moved forward, its plasma tendrils extending toward the injured Megorn. Before Tara could intervene, the tendrils made contact with Kroll's wounds. What is it doing? Tellin wondered aloud. Kroll tensed, then relaxed as a soft glow spread from Roria's tendrils into his injuries. The pain. It's subsiding, he reported with amazement. The nanotechnology, Tellin realized. It's temporarily stabilizing his condition. Can it heal him completely? Tara asked hopefully. Tellin shook his head. I don't believe so. But it might buy him enough time to reach medical facilities. With Roria's assistance, they managed to get Kroll to his feet. Together, the unusual group continued their perilous journey through the disintegrating station sections. When they finally reached the evacuation docks, they found them in chaos. Hundreds of Alliance members were trying to board the limited number of emergency vessels, while security personnel struggled to maintain order. Ambassador Beckett! A voice cut through the din. It was Dr. Mirax Thorn, a xenobiology specialist from the Morksley delegation. The Council has allocated a priority vessel for you and the specimen. This way, quickly. Thorn led them to a sleek emergency craft docked apart from the main evacuation area. As they approached, Tara noticed the unusual equipment installed inside. Not standard emergency supplies, but scientific instruments. Dr. Thorn, she said cautiously, this doesn't look like an evacuation vessel. It's been modified for specialized transport, Thorn explained smoothly. To ensure the creature's safe containment during evacuation. Tellin and Kroll exchanged a look that confirmed Tara's suspicions. You're not taking us to a relief station, are you? She challenged. This is a mobile laboratory. You want to study Roria, or weaponize it. Thorn's expression hardened. The Council recognizes the specimen's scientific value. Its capabilities must be thoroughly analyzed under controlled conditions. Even after what you've just witnessed? Tara demanded. Roria isn't a weapon or a lab experiment, it's a living being. A living being that nearly destroyed a space station, Thorn countered. Because it was afraid and in pain, Tara shot back. Just like any creature would be if taken from its home and subjected to experiments. Roria, perhaps sensing the tension, emitted a soft trill and pressed closer to Tara's side. Look at it now, Tara continued, gesturing to the docile creature. With proper care and understanding, Roria isn't dangerous. But if you try to force it into more experiments, who knows what might happen? Thorn hesitated, clearly weighing the risk against scientific curiosity. The station shuddered again, a reminder that time was running out. Doctor, Tellin intervened. I have comprehensive data on the creature's acoustic properties and nanostructure. He held up the storage device. We can study this information without subjecting the creature to further stress, which, I remind you, was the trigger for its destructive emissions in the first place. Thorn reached for the device, but Tellin pulled it back. On one condition, the professor stipulated. The creature remains with Ambassador Beckett, who has demonstrated an ability to keep it calm. Any research must be conducted non-invasively, with the creature's welfare as a priority. Another violent tremor emphasized the urgency of their situation. Thorn finally nodded. Fine, but the Council will want regular reports on the creature's condition and capabilities. They'll have them, Tara promised. Now let's get out of here before there's nothing left to evacuate from. With Thorn's reluctant cooperation, they secured passage on a standard evacuation vessel instead. As they pulled away from the deteriorating station, Tara watched through a viewport as entire sections of Vortex Citadel visibly warped and twisted, the structural damage spreading like a slow-motion wave. The station's primary functions should survive, Tellin informed her, noting her concerned expression. The core systems are heavily shielded and compartmentalized specifically to withstand localized disasters. "I never meant for any of this to happen," Tara said quietly, stroking one of Roria's tendrils as the creature rested beside her. "Intent and outcome are rarely aligned in diplomacy," Talon observed philosophically. "But from disaster, sometimes comes understanding." In the medical section of the evacuation vessel, Kroll was receiving treatment for his injuries. The medical officers had been astonished to find his wounds partially stabilized by what they could only describe as foreign nanoagents. Roria's contribution to saving the soldier, who had initially viewed it with such suspicion. Over the following weeks, as Alliance emergency teams worked to stabilize and repair Vortex Citadel, Tara found herself in an unexpected position. Rather than being recalled to Earth in disgrace, she had become the de facto guardian of what was now recognized as one of the most scientifically significant organisms in known space. A special hearing was convened aboard the Alliance flagship, where representatives from all Deathworld species gathered to determine the future of both Roria and Earth's relationship with the Alliance. "Ambassador Beckett," Marshal Farrow addressed her formally as the hearing began. The events at Vortex Citadel raised serious questions about Earth's intentions and transparency in its dealings with the Alliance. "I understand, Marshal," Tara acknowledged, "and I wish to state for the record that if there was any deception regarding Roria's nature, it was not sanctioned at the highest levels of Earth's government. Yet your scientists clearly engineered this creature with advanced nanotechnology," a Vespet representative pointed out. "They did," Tara admitted, "and that represents a failure of ethical oversight that Earth must address. But I believe it also represents an opportunity for genuine collaboration between our civilizations." Professor Tellin, invited to provide expert testimony, supported her position. "My analysis confirms that the nanostructures within Roria are designed to enhance survival in extreme environments, precisely the kind of adaptation that defines Deathworld species." He displayed holographic models of Roria's cellular structure. "With proper research protocols, humane ones that respect Roria as a living being, we could develop revolutionary materials, self-healing spacecraft hulls, adaptive environmental suits, medical applications beyond our current capabilities." The council members conferred among themselves, their diverse communication methods creating a strange symphony of clicks, whistles, and subvocal rumbles. Finally, Marshal Farrow addressed Tara again. "The Alliance recognizes the scientific potential represented by your gift. However, we cannot overlook the destruction it caused, nor the lack of transparency in its presentation." Tara held her breath, expecting the worst. "Therefore," Farrow continued, "we propose the following resolution. Earth will share all research data regarding the nanotechnology employed in creating M15 Theta. In return, the Alliance will establish a joint research initiative with representatives from Earth and all interested Deathworld species to study the creature in a safe, controlled, and ethical manner." "And Roria?" Tara asked, glancing at the creature that had remained peacefully by her side throughout the proceedings. "The creature has demonstrated a particular bond with you, Ambassador," Farrow acknowledged. "It will remain under your guardianship, with appropriate safety protocols maintained at all times." Relief washed over Tara. "Thank you, Marshal. Earth accepts these terms and welcomes the opportunity for collaborative research." In the aftermath of the hearing, a special habitat was created for Roria aboard one of the Alliance's scientific vessels. It was a miniature biosphere, recreating conditions similar to its native environment on Vor 6, where the nanocells could safely regenerate without triggering the defensive screaming response. Tara stood at the observation window, watching as Roria explored its new home, its plasma tendrils curling around alien vegetation with evident curiosity. "It seems content," Tellin observed, joining her at the window. "I think it is," Tara agreed, "for perhaps the first time since it was taken from its homeworld." "You know," Tellin said thoughtfully, "in all the chaos, We never definitively established why it screamed in the first place. Fear, Tara suggested. Confusion. Pain from the nano-restructuring activating in unfamiliar surroundings. Perhaps, Tellin acknowledged. Or perhaps it was trying to tell us something all along, and we simply lacked the capacity to understand. As if in response to their conversation, Roria approached the observation window, its plasma eyes fixed on Tara, with what she could only interpret as recognition. It emitted a soft, melodic trill, so different from the devastating scream that had nearly destroyed a space station. "I think you're right, Professor," Tara said softly. "We just needed to learn how to listen." Roria lifted a tendril, pressing it gently against the transparent barrier separating them. Tara placed her hand against the glass in response, feeling a strange warmth where the plasma appendage aligned with her palm. Earth's first gift to the Alliance may not have gone as planned, she reflected. But sometimes the most valuable gifts are the ones we don't expect. Like understanding a scream can be more than just noise. It can be a wake-up call. Behind them, Major Kroll approached, walking with a slight limp, but otherwise recovered from his injuries. "The research team is ready to begin their first official observation session," he reported. "They've requested your presence, Ambassador, since the creature responds so positively to you." "Not just the creature anymore, Major," Tara corrected him gently. "Roria, a living being with its own identity, not just a specimen or a weapon." Kroll nodded, his glowing eyes reflecting a new respect. "Roria, then, will you be joining the session?" "Of course," Tara said, taking a last look at the peaceful scene before her. After all, this is just the beginning. As they walked away, Roria watched them go, its form pulsing with a steady, tranquil glow. The suppressor collar around its central mass had been modified to allow for safe vocalization, and it emitted one last gentle trill, a sound that carried no embedded nanocoding or destructive resonance, but something much simpler and more profound: connection. In the observation room above Roria's habitat, news cameras had been permitted to record the historic first research session of the Joint Earth Alliance initiative. As the feed went live across thousands of worlds, viewers saw something unexpected. Roria, the creature whose scream had nearly destroyed a space station, now calmly interacting with its environment, while Ambassador Tara Beckett explained its unique properties to a fascinated audience. And in that moment, what had begun as a diplomatic disaster transformed into something else entirely: a bridge between civilizations, built not on misunderstanding and fear, but on cooperation, respect, and the shared pursuit of knowledge. The camera lingered on Roria as the formal presentation concluded. The creature looked directly into the lens, its plasma eyes somehow conveying an intelligence that transcended species boundaries. It emitted a soft sound, the frequency suppressor momentarily dimming to reveal those gentle, plasma-filled eyes, suggesting that the long collaboration between humanity and the Deathworld Alliance was only just beginning. When M15 Theta, a creature launched from Earth to the Deathworld Alliance, reached the first space checkpoint, a scream echoed for an entire week. Tara narrated for the audience. And that was just the beginning of a journey that would teach us all how to truly listen.